All right, in your packet, your chapter 3 packet, open that up to the first page inside your packet. Should look something like this. We're going to start your notes on here, and then we'll finish your notes off somewhere else. First thing we need today is to get some definitions down. These definitions we'll use all the way through chapter 3. And actually, turn it to the next page. We're going to kind of start from the top. We're not going to do all of these quite today. Some of them will come later here in chapter 3, but we're going to start with a few of these. So the first one is parallel lines. And parallel lines are going to be coplanar lines that do not intersect. And then we'll break down what that means. Coplanar lines that do not intersect. Coplanar means they're on the same plane. We're going to have lines that do not intersect. And we're going to use, it's got room over here for a picture, but some of these are very difficult to draw. There's pictures in your textbook if you want to look at those. We're going to use the classroom to kind of give you an example of what these things are here. So instead of a picture, I want you to look at the ceiling. Ceiling of this classroom, we've got these little tabs that hold up the ceiling tiles. And if you pick two of them that run from left to right, those would be parallel lines. They're on the same plane, they're on that ceiling. Plane's flat surface, they're on that flat ceiling. And if you go and follow them across, they never intersect with each other. Those things extended forever and ever, they would never cross each other. Okay, you pick two of them that run from front to back. Two of those things would not intersect with each other also. Now, this will come later on down the road, but we'll kind of think this through a little bit. If they're on the same plane and they never intersect, what's that tell you about the distance between them? I measured the distance between these two way over here on the left, and then I went way to the right-hand side of the classroom and measured them over there. What would I get? Yep. Same thing. It's going to be the same length between them. All the way through those two lines, they will have the same length between them. So they'll always measure the same distance apart from each other. So that's parallel lines. They're coplanar lines that do not intersect. Now, skew lines are also lines that do not intersect. The difference here is they're not going to be on the same plane. And once again, for a picture, there's pictures in the book if you want to draw a picture of it. We're going to use the classroom to kind of describe this again. I'm going to take where the front wall meets the ceiling. Where the front wall meets the ceiling, you've got this line going from left to right. Okay, that line right there would be skewed to the line in the back of the room where the back wall meets this right-hand wall. Behind my desk there, you've got that line that's going up and down. Okay, those two right there, one's going up and down, one's going left and right. They're not on the same plane and they don't intersect with each other. I used to be able to do this better. You ever pat your head and rub your tummy at the same time? That's kind of what I'm doing here. Left and right here and up and down here. Oh, I used to be able to do it better. Can't do it today. So those would be skew lines. They never intersect. They're on different planes. And that one is the one that usually catches people the most. So that's the one we want to make sure we know going into that next quiz. Parallel planes is our next one. Parallel planes, same idea as parallel lines. They're not going to intersect. These are just going to be planes that do not intersect. And again, using our classroom, a good example of parallel planes would be like the ceiling and the floor. Ceiling and the floor, they never intersect with each other. That would make them parallel planes. All right, transversal. It's going to be a line that intersects two or more coplanar lines. Now I can draw a picture of this one a little bit easier than those other ones. Transversal, it's going to intersect two or more lines. So I'm going to draw a line here, draw a line here. I'm going to call those two lines A and B. And then when we have a line that comes through them, like this, I'm going to call this line C. In this picture here, C is transversal. It intersects two or more coplanar lines. That makes it a transversal. And this picture is going to be something you're going to become pretty familiar with over the next few days here. We're going to have a lot of pictures like this with different types of angles. And the first type of angles we're going to use are interior angles. We're going to start with a picture of this. Once again, I'm going to start with two lines. And then I'm going to have a transversal come through it. And then the angles that are formed by this transversal that are inside of the other two lines, which I'm going to number here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. These things are going to be your interior angles. So they're the angles that fall between the two lines being intersected by a transversal. Let's kind of put that as our definition here. If you think of interior being on the inside, that will help you remember that. There are the angles on the inside of the two lines that are being intersected by that transversal. And then right below there, we've got exterior angles. You can probably figure out what's going to happen with exterior angles. If interior angles are on the inside of the two lines being intersected, where are the exterior angles going to be? They're going to be outside. So if I draw my two lines again, I'm going to draw a transversal coming through them. I should have drawn this a little bit smaller. Now we're going to put these two angles, 5 and 6, would be exterior angles. Down here we have 7 and 8. Those are going to be exterior angles. And rather than writing all of this out again, I'm just going to kind of do this. The only thing that's going to change here is this inside is going to become outside. And everything else just follows. We can do the little diddle marks here. Everything else on that statement is the same, except for the outside. Exterior angles will be the angles formed on the outside of the two lines intersected by a transversal. And then slope, we'll come back to slope. We're going to do that later on here in chapter 3. All right, that's our first page of definitions. Now flip it to that other page. That looks like this. And today we're going to fill out just the first part of this. We're going to do the picture. And then these types of angles are going to have a theorem that goes with them later on, and then a converse, which is where we flip things around. We're going to have that come later on in this chapter also. But for today, all we need is the picture of these. So the first one we want is corresponding angles. So again, we're going to start with our two lines that are being intersected by a transversal. And then corresponding angles are essentially, they're going to hold the same place on your transversal. So if I take this angle 1 right here, if you look at angle 1, it is to the left of the transversal and above the line being intersected. The other angle, why don't I do this? Let's label this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That might make it a little bit easier to do this. So now, like I was saying, angle 1 is to the left of the transversal and it's above the line being intersected. The other angle that's to the left of the transversal and above the line being intersected would be angle 5. Those two hold the same place on your transversal. They're both to the left and above. So angles 1 and 5 would be a set of corresponding angles. Now that's just one set. There's several others. Let's take angle 3. Angle 3 is to the left of the transversal, but it's below the line being intersected. What other angle up here would correspond with angle 3?
7.
Angle 7. 3 and 7 are both to the left and below. So 3 and 7 are another pair. We'll see if you guys can take it from here. Can anybody give us another pair? Yep.
4 and 8.
4 and 8 would be. And there's one other. Anybody got it? Zoe?
2 and 6.
2 and 6. 2 and 6 are both above the line being intersected and to the right of the transversal. 4 and 8 was the other ones. Those are both to the right of the transversal, below the lines being intersected. So when you think of corresponding angles, you can just kind of think that they're on the same, they hold the same position on your transversal. That makes them corresponding. All right, let's go to alternate interior. This time I'm going to draw my transversal kind of coming at it the other direction. And we'll just go ahead and number the angles the same way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, when it asks for alternate interior angles, alternate means they're going to be on opposite sides of the transversal. And then we know what interior angles are. Interior angles are on the inside of the lines being intersected. So our interior angles are 3, 4, 5, and 6. Alternate means they're going to be on opposite sides of the transversal. So one of the sets of alternate interior would be 3 and 6. And the other set of alternate interior would be 4 and 5. Alternate interior. When you see those words alternate, just think opposite sides of the transversal. Interior on the inside of the lines being intersected. Now, sometimes people say alternate interior. You said they're opposite sides of the transversal and inside the lines being intersected. 3 and 4 technically would fit that description. 3 and 4 are on opposite sides of the transversal and they're on the inside of the lines being intersected, but we already have a name for 3 and 4. back from chapter 1. What do we call those angles that form a straight line that are right next to each other? Anybody remember the name for that? Two angles next to each other, they form a straight line. It's on your test yesterday. Linear pair. Linear pair is going to be two angles, two adjacent angles next to each other, they form a straight line. So that's why 3 and 4 are not alternate interior. We already have a name for those. They're called a linear pair. Now I'm going to skip down to the bottom. We just did alternate interior. Now let's do alternate exterior. Because once you know alternate interior, it's going to be easier to pick out alternate exterior. We'll just number our angles the same way again, 1 through 8. And if you remember, alternate interior, we're going to be on opposite sides of the transversal and inside the two lines being intersected. Now, alternate exterior, we're going to start the same way. Alternate is going to be opposite sides of the transversal. Exterior part is going to be, now they're outside the two lines being intersected. So we need exterior angles this time. And let's give you guys a shot here. Can anybody give us one pair of alternate exterior? So
1 and 8.
1 and 8. 1 and 8 are both outside the two lines being intersected, opposite sides of the transversal. That's one of them. Can anybody give us another one? Alec, what do you think?
2 and 7.
2 and 7. Very good. 2 and 7, opposite sides of the transversal, outside the two lines being intersected. All right, now our last one is consecutive interior angles. We'll start with a picture again, two lines being intersected by a transversal. We'll number our angles from 1 to 8 once again. And consecutive interior angles, you know the interior part. Interior, they're going to be on the inside of the two lines being intersected. Consecutive means they're going to be on the same side of that transversal. So inside the two lines being intersected is the interior part. Consecutive means they're going to be on the same side of the transversal. So if I come to my picture over here, 3 is an interior angle. The other angle that's on the same side of the transversal as that would be 5. 3 and 5 would be a pair of consecutive interior. So if 3 and 5 are a pair of consecutive interior, who can give me the other pair? Zoe?
4 and 6.
4 and 6. 4 and 6 are both interior angles. They're both to the right of the transversal. All right, that's the first part of our notes. Now, what we're going to have you do is just kind of keep that handy because you're going to want to probably bounce back and forth. And this is probably the page you're going to want up here because the rest of the notes is what we're going to do on the homework, which is going to be basically identify what kind of angles we have. So on a piece of paper somewhere, wherever you're going to keep the notes, take those out and get today's date on there. Today is Friday, October 4th. Or October 9th. And this is section 3.1. And I'm going to start, I'm just going to take you right into what you're going to do on the homework. The directions are going to tell you to classify the angles. Classify means you're just going to name them. So you're going to tell whether they're alternate interior, alternate exterior, consecutive interior, that type of thing. And on this first example, we're just going to have two lines being intersected by a transversal. And this time around, I'm going to number the angles differently. I'm going to go down instead of across this time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I'm just mixing up those numbers because they'll number the pictures differently each time. All right, we're just going to do a few examples here. We'll call the first one letter A. They want us to classify angles 8 and 4. So all we have to do here is kind of look at our picture and determine what kind of angles 8 and 4 are. If we look at angles 8 and 4, here's 8, here's 4. Those two are on the outside of the lines being intersected, and they're on opposite sides of the transversal. That would make these two alternate exterior. And when it comes to a test or a quiz, if you want to abbreviate, you can abbreviate on these. You don't have to write the whole thing out. Maybe I'll do that next time just to show you that. So 8 and 4 would be alternate exterior angles. Let's take angles 7 and 6. When we look at angles 7 and 6, 7 and 6 are both to the right of the transversal, and they're both inside the two lines being intersected. So we should probably make you guys do a little work here. If you go back to that paper we just filled out, can anybody figure out which of our 4 types of angles we have here? They're on the same side of the transversal, and they are inside the two lines being intersected. Maddie, what do you think? Oh, were you stretching?
Yeah.
I thought you had your hand up. Alec, what do you think?
Consecutive interior.
Consecutive interior. And once again, if you want to abbreviate, you can abbreviate. I'll know what that means. 7 and 6 would be consecutive interior. They're on the same side of the transversal, and they're both interior. All right, let's give you one to do all by yourself. On this one, we're going to pick angles 7 and 5. So using that sheet we just filled out, see if you can figure out which type of angles 7 and 5 are. Anybody want more time with that? All right, Carter, what do you think here?
What?
7 and 5, what kind of angles are those?
Oh, I gotta get my stuff out.
All right. Seven and 5 are both on the right-hand side of the transversal, both below the lines being intersected.
Is it corresponding?
Corresponding. All right, that's how that works. So that's the first step of what you'll do on the homework. Now, we're going to take this one step further. Before I do, any questions on what we have here? Okay, now, the next one we're going to do is we're going to draw a picture where we have 4 different lines intersecting. We're going to call these lines A, B, C, and I guess D would be over here. I'll put D up here. And now that we have 4 lines intersecting, it's going to give us many more angles. We're going to end up getting 4 at each one of these intersection points here. So we're going to number those 1 through 16. And we're going to do the same thing we did before, but we're going to add one step to it. Now the directions are going to tell us to first identify the transversal. And then we'll classify the angles. So it's really the exact same thing we did before. We're just having to tell one more thing when we do this. And once again, we'll try a couple of these together and I'll give you one to try by yourself. All right, for our first one, we're going to pick angles 13 and 12. So with angles 13 and 12, we need to identify the transversal and we have to classify the angles. Now I'm going to start with the identifying the transversal part. If you remember, the transversal is going to be the line that intersects two other lines. So if I look at angles 13 and 12, here's 13 down here, here's 12 down here. What I found over the years that makes this a little easier is since I'm only using these two angles down here, I don't need any of the stuff on top. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover up the top part of my picture. I don't even need that. And once I do that, now I'm back to what I had before. I've got one line intersecting two other lines. And at this point, we're going to start with our transversal. Transversal is the line that intersects the other two. If you look, C is going through both of these lines. So your transversal would be C. And then we're going to classify the angles. 13 and 12 are both outside the two lines being intersected. And they're on opposite sides of the transversal. That would make them alternate exterior. So same thing we just got done doing, just adding that one step of picking out the transversal. Let's try one more of those together. Let's pick angles. Let's go with 8 and 10. And same thing here, we're going to identify the transversal and tell what kind of angles we have. Angles 8 and 10. Here's 8 over here, here's 10 right here. Those two are on this side of the picture, so what I'm going to do is cover up the part I don't need. I'm not using these angles over here. And we'll start with the transversal. Sarah, what do you think the transversal is for angles 8 and 10? A. A is going through both of those angles, so A is the transversal. And Ozzy, what kind of angles do you think 8 and 10 are?
Consecutive.
Consecutive, yeah. Consecutive interior. If you just said consecutive, I would know what that is. Consecutive interior. Okay, very good. All right, let's give you one to try all by yourself. This time we're going to go with angles 4 and 8. This time you're on your own. See if you can figure out the transversal and identify what kind of angles we have. Anybody need more time with that? All right, we're looking at angles 4 and 8. Here's angle 4, here's angle 8. Those are on the top part of our picture, so I'm just going to cover up the bottom part. Daniel, what would be our transversal going through both angles 4 and 8? B goes through both of those. There's your transversal. And Megan, what do you think with the kind of angles they are? 4 and 8, what do you think? It is corresponding. Same spot on your transversal. They're both to the right. of the lines being intersected and below your transversal. And there it is. All right, does anybody need to see another example like this? Okay, and that is it.